Welcome to the Agent Upgrade Podcast with your hosts Jasmine, Krnjetin, and Alan Corey, where we learn the strategies of top producing real estate agents so you have the tools to upgrade your own real estate career.
Welcome to the Agent Upgrade Podcast with Alan and Jasmine. Got a great episode for you again today. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. All that stuff helps all the algorithms promote this show so that we can get great guests like the one we have today.
So today is a slightly different show than we normally have. Today we're interviewing Justin Schaeffer. He's with Bullseye Creative Agency, and he did a podcast with Alan on the House of AC podcast. And I am using Justin right now to go through rebranding my Jasmine mortgage team. Alan, you have used him in the past for your website.
Yeah. I've used him multiple times for probably 5 or 6 different businesses for branding. I've recommended him out. He's great. I have a podcast, I call it a sister podcast. It's mostly about real estate investing, but there's a lot of entrepreneurial angles. And so I had him on to just help people brand themselves or their own business. And that is obviously a big play for real estate agents, right? It's your name, and sometimes you're starting from scratch, or sometimes you don't even know what your brand is. And he gives you strategies to identify that. And, talks the difference. A lot of people don't know the difference between branding and marketing. And so we talk about that and how to identify what your brand should be and who your audience is and all these things that you may or may not have ever thought about before, but, or don't even know how to think about it. And he breaks it down and makes it really digestible.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And this is a really, really good episode. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Take some notes. And then give Justin a holler when you're ready to start building your empire.
Yeah, so this podcast will be the entirety of my episode for the House of AC, and we'll make some references to that. But we did see the parallels to put this out to our agent only sort of broadcast here. So hopefully you get out of it what I got out of it, and it's very educational. So check it out and let us know. Hey, it's AC. Welcome to my house. Got a great one for you entrepreneurs out there. A great episode. We're live streaming this on Facebook, Twitter, Discord, Twitch, YouTube, and more. If you're catching it later, thank you for tuning in later. You can catch these episodes later on YouTube as well as on the podcast, the House of AC podcast, and on the House of AC Facebook page. So you have no excuses to ever miss an episode. And I know I'm just pumping out content, but I do it for you. I want you to learn so much. I've just got to download so much info out of my brain, put it in some sort of media platform for you to consume. So I'm doing that for you. You just need to show up, hit like, and follow. That's all I want. And I want your reviews on the podcast. I want your comments. You can comment live, and when we'll ask your questions real time. But you can also ask questions later. I see those comments. I'll come back and answer them later as well. So do not be shy. Now, today's awesome podcast, I'm very excited to have in here a friend of the show, Justin Schaeffer. He's a principal creative at Bullseye ATL, a design agency, branding agency, builds websites. I think he's probably built 5 to 6 different brands for me. Always knocking it out of the park. Really big name here in the Atlanta area, designing brands for companies all over in town Atlanta. So really excited to have him on, because I feel like everyone needs to know branding. Even if you have a side hustle that you do, if you have dreams to be an entrepreneur, if you have an alias online, you're projecting an image in the digital world. And I think it's important to get it right. Like something that captures you or your company or your product. And, this is something everyone should listen to and take in and apply it to their own life. Because as we become more and more virtual, Zoom calls, metaverse, even your online identity is maybe a better representation of you, or definitely have further reach than your in real life identity. So that's why it's so important to get branding right. And that's why I wanted Justin to join us today. So let's bring him into the House of AC studio. Hey, Justin.
Hey.
Thanks for joining.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So, thank you for knocking out all my branding. If you guys sort of like what's going on at the House of AC, that's courtesy of Justin Schaeffer here. Tell us a little bit how you got started in this world.
Yeah, you bet. Well, way back, I have my Bachelor of Fine Arts in oil painting. So my education was around kind of aesthetics, but from a fine arts point of view. And right out of, actually during high school, I even had an internship. And out of high school, I was a sign designer for pretty high end. We did Pottery Barn, GameWorks, Disney. So I learned a lot about that sort of stuff. And then through my small business experience and experience in nonprofit, branding was always a big part of the successful businesses or nonprofits I've been a part of after I left the sign design world. We'd have a brand identity guide that we'd need to follow in anything we produced. And I saw how much that helped the growth of the successful businesses or nonprofits I was a part of. And then I started Bullseye 3 years ago. I was working in a nonprofit, doing a lot of volunteer work in the neighborhood, but always using kind of my design skills and branding skills, and ended up having companies ask me if I would do that work for them, and started doing it, and then launched the business and have been growing it ever since.
Well, yeah. So you're doing a great job. And I want to just kick off with what may sound like an easy question for you, but I think it's something that it's not easily known by possibly our audience. And even me, I get confused sometimes.
Sure.
Can you define branding for us?
Yeah, well, I follow Marty Neumanheyer's definition of, he wrote The Brand Gap, and Zig, I think, or Zag, really well-known branding books that, they're New York Times bestsellers. And he says that branding is the gut response your client or customer has about your brand. Yeah.
I like that. And that reminds me of a Jeff Bezos quote that I heard. And he said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
That's perfect. Exactly. That's exactly right. So, in a lot of ways, when people talk about branding, or they say, I'm going to start a brand, or I want you to help me with my branding. What branding really is it's not really in your control. It's in your potential clients or customers' control. That how they feel about your brand is your branding. You can try to guide them with your approach towards branding. And you can have a goal for how you want them to feel, which is, if you have that goal, it's going to help focus you a lot in your work. But really, it's in the hands of your customers and consumers, how they feel.
So who needs a brand?
Well, if you offer a service or a product or entertainment or anything that anyone might consume or use, you have a brand, and you can't help but have a brand. You could have a good brand, or you can have a bad brand. People can have good feelings towards what you're offering, or they can have poor feelings towards what you're offering. And you can have, if you have such a great product, if you have like the most amazing product, if you are, Ghetto Burger down on Memorial.
Yes.
They're famous for their big sloppy burger.
Well, that's funny. That's not the name of the restaurant, but that's their brand.
Right. Exactly. Right. We have branded it Ghetto Burger. It's Ms. Ann's Snack Shop or something, right? Or Ann's Snack Shop, right? But they have a reputation, but they don't have nice looking aesthetics at all. They have not hired someone like me to create a beautiful logo for them, and they haven't hired an interior decorator. But the brand that they have is so popular because of kind of how, so it doesn't, there's so many ways a brand can be formed. Somebody can have a cruddy, I hate to say it as a designer, somebody could have a cruddy logo they had their like brother design or something on with some clip art. But if they're delivering a product that's making people feel great about it, then they can have a great feeling brand without a nice looking brand. You could also have a really great looking brand and have people feeling really bad about it because your services or your products are poor.
Yeah. Now I fall in this sometimes. I feel like every entrepreneur kind of does this. They get really excited about their business idea and their business venture, and then they just stop everything to design a logo. And almost like the logo comes first before really fleshing out the full business model, business plan. I need to fall in love with the logo, and then then I can move forward. Is that common in your world too? Is that necessary step, or is that just a waste of time and that should come later? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely not a waste of time, but it's often done it's just so exciting.
Yeah.
And it makes your business feel real. And you also don't you want to start telling people about your business or your idea, but you don't want to until you've got your logo. So it can hold things up. And so, yeah, I run into a ton of, you're a fast moving guy. You want to get going, right? And you don't want stuff holding you back. I run into a lot of, once you've got that great idea, you want it out there. But what I've found working with lots of startups, small businesses, real estate agents, big construction companies, is that when I start asking very important questions that you want to ask before you design your logo, that either they haven't thought about it much, or that we really shouldn't start the logo process until we've answered some pretty important questions first.
Right. Okay. So what are those questions to start? Maybe not the logo process, but a branding process.
Yeah. Well, so when people say, "Hey, I want a logo from you," or "I want you to design my new brand identity," I use what I call my Bullseye branding guide. It's a 4-part questionnaire, and I'll ask them to describe their business, give me a 30-second pitch and kind of a longer, much more detailed description of what they offer. I'll ask them to describe their ideal client. That's a really important step. Have you thought about who you're trying to reach? And really, it can feel, when you're offering a service or a product or whatever, you want to try to get as many people to buy it as possible. So you can get real tempted to be general. But actually, it's way better to be uber specific and really kind of dial in on a niche. The more particular you can be about that person you're trying to reach, then the more distinct your branding can be. And so you're like, what are their values? Where do they shop? What social media do they follow and interact with? What clothes do they like to wear? Are these families? Are these singles? Are there, answering questions about the audience you're trying to reach can really help. Because I'm a creative. I design stuff. Creativity and marketing and branding are potentially like infinite black holes of possibility. You can go out as far in any direction as you possibly can imagine. So you have to have some guide rails, or you're just gonna come up with something that's not gonna help you with your branding. So who are we trying to reach? Describe a client to me. And then I love to find out, what are the emotions that these potential clients are feeling as they approach your business? Are they afraid? Are they excited? Are they frustrated? How are they feeling? And what's it feel like to experience the relief that whatever you're giving them offers, or the pinnacle, or whatever their goal is, what they're trying to reach? What are those emotions? How does that feel? What's the process like? Then we also ask, do you have any, what are the distinctive details about your business? Do you have 30 years of experience? Have you won awards? Do you have an approach that makes you different from your other competitors? Was there a special story about how your business began that really needs to be shared, that makes you distinct, makes you stand out? Do you have any, particular colors, or, are there other websites that you really like? And so there's so many questions to ask. I could probably fill the rest of this hour asking questions, because that's how much you can go into it.
What I'm hearing though is, like, I'm sure everyone has a thought process. Who do you want to sell this to? And everyone says everybody, but creating a brand that is for everybody, that seems like the opposite of what you're saying.
Yeah. Every branding book I've ever read says, be distinct or die. And that's an evolutionary, if you don't have something that helps you to be different, or to, survive in a special way in an environment, then you die off, so you have, what is it that makes you distinct and special? And then also really, going after a niche is, obviously if it's too small a niche, if you've ever bought an ad on Facebook or whatever, you see, like, if you change that audience, you can get to a sweet spot, right? There's a sweet spot where you're being distinct enough, but your crowd is also large enough to pay your bills or sell enough of your product or whatever it is. But you do want to plant a flag and decide who you are and who you're trying to reach.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great book, Seth Godin, The Purple Cow, really quick and easy, but it's just that concept, very, very narrow. Like, you want to be the purple cow. Everyone's going to remember the purple cow. No one's just going to remember the cow. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you can't stand out, then you're just in a sea of noise. And with the amount of content that's out there today, you really have to figure out some sort of way to be distinct.
Right. And you can be extremely good looking, like me. And
Exactly.
that's how no. So you go through these questions. So this branding process, you fill out a 4-part questionnaire on your branding guide, what you mentioned, and that's bullseyeatl.com/brand-identity-guide, or you can go to Linktree/bullseyeatl to kind of get. Is this a free sort of thing to fill out?
Yeah, you can fill it out. It'd be a great work process for anybody to go through as business, answer those questions. It's something I send all my clients when they begin to engage with me, but anyone can use it and go through the questions.
Okay, Linktree/bullseyeatl, probably the easiest URL to remember, and to access that. And so you take those questions, and then what would be the step after that? Like, okay, I've identified my audience or my customer. I know sort of their age range, their economic level, maybe their education level, the part of country that they live in, their spending habits, whatever. They've narrowed down that scope. What comes next?
Yeah, well, ROI really determines, again, with this infinite amount of possibilities. You could take months or even years to develop a brand if you wanted to. Or you can get one done in a couple of weeks, depending on how much money you have to spend and whether it's worth it or not, right? So some of my clients hire me to begin at like an ideation and messaging and direction. We're not, or even name. You can pay a company like $10,000 to name your new brand, because naming can be such a way to be distinctive. Like naming can be extremely difficult. One of the books I was read, same guy, Marty Neumann, he pointed out Smuckers, the name Smuckers. That's a non-word, but it sounds so good. It's so easy to say. It feels in your mouth like you're talking about jam. It feels kind of like a family or something, but it was made up. That's a ton of work to come up with that gorgeous, perfect, name. So there's naming, there's messaging. I was talking with a real estate company in our neighborhood recently that paid some folks to give them a 40-page messaging document, where they were interviewed a ton, and they wanted to figure out exactly, really narrow down the words they wanted to use to communicate how they wanted their brand to feel. And that's before any logo has been designed. 40 pages. So yeah, right. So oftentimes, most of the small businesses I work with, we've answered the questionnaire. Sometimes I'll do some of this ideation work, and we'll come up with maybe a mood board with some colors, some photos, some fonts, and say, okay, this is the direction we're going to go in before we start designing, so that we're all on the same page. And then I'll come up with like 5 options of, some logos, and I'll mock them up so you can imagine what they're like on a website or a business card or some stationery. And then there's a revision process where you work through that stuff. And once you've come out with that kind of primary color palette that goes with that logo and that logo, then you launch it out over everything, right? You make sure website feels and looks like that. Maybe I love it when my clients will, hey, there's my website. That's my portfolio. I love it when a client will allow me to build them a brand identity guide, which that's, it's usually a PDF that's about 7 or 8 pages long that has how to use your logo, how to not use your logo, some abbreviated versions of your logo, not only your primary color palette, but also kind of a secondary color palette with some pop colors and some alternative colors. And then even a typography that says like, use a heading like this, use a subheading like this, use your body copy like this. And then for a lot of my clients, I'll design an iconography. Here's a bunch of icons that you can use over time that symbolize the type of different work that you do. That's a great part of a branding process that I love, it when my clients will let me make one of those for them. And then we'll make sure that their website looks exactly like the branding guide says, and that their social media, their Facebook page, their LinkedIn page, their Instagram, their Twitter, all that's there. YouTube, it all looks the same and feels the same. The verbiage is looking and feeling the same. And then a lot of times we'll develop a strategy for how to go about continuing to communicate with that feeling and that look through like a social media strategy or newsletters and other content that they might want to create.
Right. I love that brand identity guide. And because what sort of drives me nuts, like I wouldn't say I'm a branding expert, but I feel like I recognize when there's bad branding. Like it's jarring. And so with brand identity guide, it's great because it ones you've created for me, hey, this is the font that we're going to use. The font, you can only use these 3 fonts and this font size. This is what the bolding looks like. This is what italics looks like. Because what's the disconnect is like, imagine like what something like Apple. Like imagine if Apple, like you feel like you every instruction manual you've ever had, all their advertising, it's got a very minimalistic font.
Yeah.
And then imagine like all of a sudden they're trying to sell a product that's handwritten in like purple marker. Like it's just like, wait a minute, that's off brand, and it feels cheap. It feels like a knockoff, and it's like, so even for small businesses, I see that in the real estate business space where real estate agents have the pretty logo and marketing on their website, and then like they're promoting an open house or something like that, completely different fonts, different color palette, and it doesn't match the sign, and it's like, it should be easy. Like if you have this guide and you just say, hey, I'm not going to design anything without this specific guide that Justin and Bullseye ATL created for me.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you saying that. It drives me, occasionally I see my logo out there squished, horizontally, or it's like I cannot stand it if I made a gorgeous logo for somebody. Like I shouldn't say this, but I will offer for free sometimes to update someone's social media because I cannot stand that the logo that I've designed is out there being, bastardized the way. It's just not being used properly, and it just makes me sick.
Yeah.
And I don't want my work to be out there looking that bad. I did see a client using my logo in a way that I wouldn't have possibly wanted on their website the other day. And I was thinking, man, I really wish they would have hired me to also update their website at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I actually got in trouble with this. I have a problem with keeping my mouth shut when I see bad branding. And in my head, every single time I'm like, okay, I'm doing this because I think it's helpful, and I would want someone to say this to me. And I'll say like, hey, I noticed XYZ. Like this was a basketball team my son was trying out for, and they just had like grammar mistakes on the branding, and it's like a quick fix. Like, let's just change a singular to a plural. And like they got very offensive and said this was done on purpose. Like, and time again, whenever I'm like, hey, just quick fix, this will help, everyone takes offense, and I just feel like the biggest jerk. And I'm like, I don't know, I haven't learned yet to shut my mouth, but maybe this is the time that
one of my clients recently said that his that he has a philosophy to let painters paint, and he decided to trust me with updating his 20-year-old logo. By the way, Stephanie, 20 years is definitely a time that you would want to get your logo updated usually. Well, unless you're Coca-Cola.
Let me jump in. So you're getting ahead of me. Stephanie Fuccio is asking on YouTube, how often should people revive their branding? Is this a one and done thing or what?
That absolutely depends. I try very hard. One of the things, so a lot of times you see people, grab a logo off of Fiverr or 99 Designs or one of these cheap things or whatever. And one of the things that I noticed is that it doesn't feel classic. A lot of times it's just like you can tell, for me, I can tell it's going to look old soon.
Yeah.
I try to design a logo that feels like it could, be, it depends on which company, obviously, and what on the feel and answering all those questions that we talked about before. But I like the logos that I designed for, and the branding and the feel to be something that can last for a while and to feel pretty substantial usually. So, I don't imagine that my clients are going to need to update their branding for 5 to 10 years. But it really depends on the answers to these questions, right? Is your client base changing? Does your logo feel when you're out there, when you're on YouTube, when you're out there on Instagram, when people see your logo, does it connect with how you are connecting to your clients and or your customers and feeling like, does it feel right still? So that would really be does it feel, is it communicating that gut feeling? Is your color palette communicating that gut feeling? Is your typography communicating that gut feeling that you're trying to reach and that you want your clients to have at this point in time in your business? There's a lot of law firms out there that need their branding updated. But they're making, $700 an hour and their life's good, but their
and not creative people
their
either.
branding is bad. I love working with lawyers because I feel like I can really help them out with very small amount of work. And there's a lot of construction companies that, there's a lot of folks out there that have been doing fine. But if they would maybe take a step back and see what their clientele is like and how they're coming across, they could use a little refresh.
This is what drives me nuts, and I'm probably going to offend a bunch of small businesses out there. It's like, because when you start your business, you've got to go create an LLC in most cases, or an S corp or C corp or whatever, some sort of. You have to identify the entity that you're creating, and it drives me nuts when people put LLC in their name and their logo.
Yeah, me too. I'm so glad you said that.
Like, because no one ever calls it Facebook LLC or Meta LLC, but
right.
That's the official name for it. But it's like, it's just unnecessary, and it looks weird in the logo, and it just looks small town. And then on top of that, it's small business LLC logo. Email me at joe@aol.com. And
right.
It's like, come on, you can't even get small business, LLC.com. Like, I hate it, but at least that's better than AOL.com. But small businesses, I know they've got bigger fish to fry in most cases, but sure. I really think branding could turn them from a small business to medium business.
Yeah. There are a lot of small things that, I work with a lot of bootstrapping small businesses, and, a Google Workspace account costs $5 per email user per month. It's not a huge expense for a business. And if you can't, if you're still at Gmail or something and you're trying to run a business, that's not a very professional look. It's only $5 and they're actually, Zoho, which is a knockoff of Gmail Workspace, and actually it's pretty powerful. You can get an email for free and connect it to your URL. You can have, I think, one, maybe up to 5. I don't know, but I know you can have one and connect it to your URL and look professional. And it's like, let's just at least get that step. Let's at least get you a, non-clip art. I've run into a lot of business owners that are, they've designed their logo in Canva and they don't understand why it's so pixely and can't be put on a t-shirt. And I'm like, well, because you designed a flat bitmap on Canva, and it wasn't designed in a line art, vector program by a designer, so it can't be expanded and you can't put it on a shirt. It's like this small in real life in pixels. So taking that little step to have a professional logo, to get a good URL, to drop LLC out of your name. Those are great.
And those people who are listening saying, well, I don't want a new email address. You can just have it automatically forward to your Gmail, to your Hotmail, to your Yahoo. Easily. And then when you send out emails, it still has your business name. You're still using everything. You're not logging into a second platform. It's just, it has an alias that your to and from changes, all within the same email box.
That's right.
So, it's really quick and easy now.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a question that confuses people a lot. What's the difference between branding and marketing?
Yeah, good. So, obviously I defined branding earlier. That's that gut feeling that people have about your business, right? So that's you're cultivating that through the look and feel of, how people experience your brand, whether that's digitally or through packaging or through your store, your interior design, or your exterior, your signage. There's so many ways that you're affecting that. Also through, do they enjoy the product or service that you're offering? Is your customer service good? Is your onboarding process nice? Is it nice to purchase from you? Is it nice to have is that a good experience? Or is it confusing? There's so many things that are affecting how that feels. You could have, and I have met a lot of small businesses that are, they have unbelievable products, really, really great. And the amount of people that know about them are the people that come to their, Saturday farm stand.
Right.
And that's it. And, maybe they actually even have a nice website. I've actually been almost contracted by a small business owner to redo their website. And I said, hey, listen, your website is good enough for what you're offering. Like, I can't take your money to do this. You need to spend this money on marketing. Marketing is taking this brand feel that you've designed and worked so hard at, or this product or this service, and getting it out in front of people. That's how, the strategy to how are we going to reach these ideal clients? Where are they? And there's all sorts of ways to approach, there's a shotgun approach where you're trying to shoot out as wide and far as you can to get as many leads as you can, and then qualifying those leads and trying to convert them into sales or clients. And then there's also like really going after very targeted connections, through where your people are at, through either advertising or your social media campaigns or mailers, or being part of your local business owners association meeting and meeting those folks.
Yeah. And so I consider myself a creative guy. I considered a field or a career in marketing at one point. And I was working at a tech startup, and I was really kind of following along and being nosy, figuring out what the marketing department was doing and trying to figure out if this is what I want to do. And I come from my passion's passive income. I just want to buy a house and that's done, and the rental income kind of comes in after it.
Yeah.
What I realized was marketing is like, push. We got to get this mailer out, these postcards out, hold this conference, and just this big rush because there's always these deadlines or this product release is coming out, something. And then as soon as that was done, I was like, okay, so now you guys take a deep breath, congratulations, the work's done. They're like, no, the next conference now, we got to start working on the next, it's this ongoing effort of pushing your brand out there, of your name. It's a never ending cycle. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, marketing never ends.
Yeah.
And so you get these really high highs, but it's short lived.
Yeah. And then, with marketing too, ROI is everything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so it can be really exciting to, as a marketer, I'm marketed to by, all these funnel products and all these people selling the next way to sell everybody on something. And there are really neat ways to market. There's also like an infinite black hole of possibilities that you can go down. For most small businesses, delighting the clients you have and making their experience with you fantastic, the onboarding experience, the experience with you and your customer service, doing a little follow-up with like a handwritten note or a gift or something. The ROI on that for most small businesses is going to be 10 times that of some sort of shotgun out looking for cold leads.
Right.
And so I often, my clients will get very excited about, oh, let's do this late. And I'm like, I'm down for that, as long as we're also really being careful to stay top of mind with the clients we've had. So they refer us when somebody says, hey, I'm looking for a designer. I'm looking for a real estate agent. I'm looking for somebody to help me think about investments. So we're staying top of mind with the clients that love us and have enjoyed our services or products, and making the experience they have with you great. Those are the first things we really got to and then for a lot of folks too, I'll say, if we have a solid looking social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever we've got, if that's looking great and looking like we are producing content on a regular basis, thinking, thoughtfully about our world that we're in, establishing some sort of authority and trust that we know what we're talking about. We don't necessarily need to be drawing in like new leads and clients, but we do need to have that sitting. I mean, it's great if we are. And for some products, that's really important to be going out and getting all this new stuff through that avenue. But even if it's just sitting there so that when the referral happens, that they come and look and say, oh man, they got their stuff together. Their logo looks great. They've clearly thought about how they're posting. It has a consistent message. It makes a lot of sense. They must be like what my friends said about them when they referred them. They must be legit. Even that, it's almost like kind of like the business card of today, is to have all that stuff in place. If it's not, there's so many times where you can go to a business and they haven't posted for 3 months. You wonder if they're out of business.
Right.
Why start a Facebook page if you're not going to post regularly? It makes you look like you're out of business.
Well, I read a study that said it's you're better off having no like social media presence or whatever, your Facebook page. It's better to have zero. That's a better reflection than to have a dead or stale social media
I
presence.
100% agree with that. And then also, like, my clients often will be like, hey, let's put a calendar on the website. And I always say, no, I know how busy you are. You're not going to update that calendar. You're going to look out of business.
Yeah.
We're not putting a calendar on there. We'll put a link to your social media and we'll keep your social media up to date. And then people will see that your website looks like it's supposed to and says what it says. And then your social media looks alive. The worst thing to do is put something, people always have these great ideas about, you do a great job of creating content. You're a content creator. You're making it. So many business owners have great desires to make content and they cannot follow up with, they cannot blog, they cannot write a newsletter. They just don't have time, which is great because they're usually busy with clients, which is fantastic. And I'm happy for them. But you don't want to try to start any of that stuff unless you have a real plan to execute on content.
Right. I think this is also a small business problem. And I've run into this to some degree in some of my businesses where it's, I'm so busy. I don't want to do any marketing because if I do more marketing for this business, then we're going to get even busier. And then what's happened is, oh, wow, it's been a year. We haven't done any marketing. Now business is too slow. And, and so you're just up and down, up and down.
Yeah, that's really unwise. The wisest business owners that I know have, and actually, this last year has been really great for the construction companies I work for. Well, actually, like almost all the companies I work for, they've had banner years. There's a freight forwarding company that I'm working with, best last year they've ever had in their lives. And so they are saying to themselves, which is this very wise business ownership, they're saying, since we're doing so well, let's take this opportunity to double down, rebrand, make sure our website reflects how great we are, make sure we have a plan for marketing, even though, if you get more clients, you might have an opportunity to really take the clients you want. You might have an opportunity to raise your prices. You might have, an opportunity to really focus in on a niche, which is the niche you really wanted to go down originally when you started, but you open yourself to everybody because you're trying to pay your bills. So when things are going well, that is a great time to brand, to rebrand, to make sure your website is top notch, to come up with a social media strategy. I would recommend against pulling back from marketing when things are going well.
Right. Well, you actually, it's a tough thing, but to me, that's a sign for hiring. If you're cutting out marketing because you're too busy, that's not the decision. I've learned you need to hire. You need to add it to you and continue marketing and continue growing your business.
Yes, and hiring can be hard. That is true. I mean, I have a handyman. They personally credit me with tripling their business. And they have sometimes said like, hey, let's back off. They're 6 months out from an estimate for work. I mean, that's really far out, and they're trying to hire, but hiring good folks to do great work because you want that brand to stay solid, right? You want everything you do to be a great experience, and you try to hire folks that don't quite, it can be tough. And then and also because part of that brand experience is the onboarding experience and the service and experiencing the product or the service. I have had clients that are like, so believe in what we're doing that they're like, okay, let's not launch yet because we know the floodgates are going to get open. So let's make sure we have our onboarding experience in place and the service is going to be top notch because we do believe they're going to come flooding in once we start putting the word out. So there are times where it's good to hold back on your marketing or your branding. But then once you're out there going, I would double down usually when things are going great.
Can I put you on the spot? I'd like to show your portfolio and maybe if you can give us some real world examples, maybe questions that the clients had. I don't know if you can reveal some of these things or not. But I'm interested to hear whether, the problems you solved with their branding. Or happy to talk about any of these or, jumping out at you.
Well, Stone Mountain Provisions there in the center at the top, they were real successful. They were Stone Mountain cattle and started getting opportunities to go into like sausage and these kind of foraged goods and all these things. And they had to come up with a solution that they were going to be able to put Stone Mountain cattle and these other companies under a single logo. So actually they didn't know to do that. I advised them to do that. I was like, they were like, hey, we have all this stuff. We're not sure what to do. And I'm like, well, let's do a parent brand and we'll call it Stone Mountain Provisions. And then we'll create logos for each one, but we'll make sure that they kind of feel like they're all in the same world, which was tough because Stone Mountain Cattle wasn't designed by me. So I had to figure out a way to design the other 3 logos to go with that.
Well, this looks very timeless. If people don't know what Stone Mountain is, it's a large granite, now it's a bit of a theme park, but this looks exactly like Stone Mountain. You got the trees here and a big lawn, probably like a farm kind of feel, kind of thing. So I love that one.
Yeah.
And I think everyone loves their business cards being made. That definitely looks like a CrossFit.
CG CrossFit and EQ Athletic Club. It was a tough one because they are EQ Athletic Club and CG CrossFit. So I had to do a logo that included both, but then also make them work by themselves as well. Yeah. That was a company where they were building out this space in Midtown in the midst of the pandemic. Permitting, all that stuff. It took forever. But we set them up with a really great looking brand that really reflected what they were going after and really reached their potential clients. And then we helped them with exterior signage that also felt like they wanted. And I think that's on my portfolio there, the EQ Athletic Club sign. It's really cool looking. And then, something that they can make swag with, like that shirt the girl's wearing in the picture. And they sell tons of swag. They're constantly making cutoff T-shirts and stuff. That's the home services, the handyman company that's doing so well. And that's a good example. So
I was going to interrupt you, but no handyman I know has like a mobile app.
Exactly.
Website, like, of course.
When they approached me, they said, "Hey, here's our idea. We've got a money investor. And we want to spend some money up front and do branding and be the only handyman that you can reach, that you can book with online, that has a good looking website. The other handymen in the neighborhood, I know who they are. I can tell you their names off the top of my head. They post their name with their phone number in comments under, and if you reach them, you do. If you don't, you get their voicemail. If they call you back, they do. If they don't, they don't. That's the experience with a lot of handymen around here. And because they spent a bit of money, and this is something they believed in their company, they believed in their idea, and they spent some money up front on branding. And it turned out to be, I think their gross revenue was, over 200 grand their first year in business for a single guy operation. And that's insane. That's such a great start for it, so they did great out of the bat by putting a small investment in branding and a great web and social media presence. And I've been managing their social media since the get-go too. And so they have a regular, hey, there's Alan Corey. And they have a regular presence on social media. And that's been really great for them.
Okay. So, what does someone spend on branding? What do you recommend in that case?
Yeah, well, again, that really goes to, I think Simply Smart's a great example of people that if you really believe in your business and your business plan, it's a good idea to borrow some money or find an investor and spend some good cash on branding up front if you believe and want the floodgates to open and have a bunch of people come in. Many companies I'm working with are bootstrapping. And that's not a bad way to go. But it's just, it can take a bit smaller, and you can end up being stuck with maybe some branding that is a little bit less thought out, or, it hasn't been developed quite as much. But planning to spend a good amount of money. I mean, again, this is this ROI thing, right? If you know you're going to be bringing in, like, let's say, you're a lawyer and your clients are going to average $5,000 each or something, then the ROI on investing up front for some really good branding is, you can spend $10,000 on branding. You can spend, $10,000-$15,000 on branding in a website. If you're going to be starting a wine store, like my latest client in Edgewood, spending $5,000 to $10,000 on your branding, and then doing a website, and then spending another 10 grand on like signage and stuff like that. That's a great investment, because you want everybody to love your new store and be the main store they're coming to for wine. And you don't want to like slowly, eke in. Right. You want to shoot off the bat. Right. So, but it's really ROI, right? So you have to determine, and this is like, you have to ask these questions. what's your average client going to spend? How many clients you're going to get? How much money you think you're going to try to make in a year? How much money do you want to, what's your goal? If your goal is high, then you're like, okay, let's spend this money ahead of time because it's going to pay off and I'm going to get these high-end clients. If you're like, I'm just going to scrape by and make a living that pays my bills, I really want to bootstrap this, then your budget's going to be, a bit smaller. You're going to have to maybe slowly put things together.
So we got a comment here from Ian Calabria. It's a Jay-Z quote. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. And what he means by that is, he's not a man that goes to business. He himself is a business. I'm a business, man.
Yeah.
And I know Ian's a realtor. I'm a realtor as well. And I think that's completely true. Like, this brand is, a lot of times you're a one-man operation. And so you are a business and you are a businessman or woman, whatever the case may be. So anything differently you've got to go in those situations when you're sort of a one-man show?
Yeah, well, trying to figure that out, so, you're the Alan Corey team, right? And your team has your name on it. I'm working with another real estate agent who's also a team, and, trying to figure out, just like that, it's that Smucker's question. It's the naming question. Like, because your name is out there and you've been referred so many times because you've done such a great job with people's real estate transactions and what they're trying, buying a home or selling a home. You don't want to take your name off of your brand because it is what people know. Right. It'd be ridiculous to take it off because that's what people are looking for when they're trying to find your business. Same thing with my client that I'm working with now. It's like, he's built his following with his name. We're not going to take his name off the business, even though we could go for a name that, evokes some sort of feeling or is a bit more general, because then we're going to include his team and then it won't feel weird that you don't get him directly if you're trying to do, there's all sorts of questions with that. But yeah, what's nice about that too is then your personal social media can be your business brand. That's something I struggle with some of my clients, is deciding whether or not we want to start a separate business, named social media profile, or keep their personal profile, if they built their business around their name. It's a decision to be made that we got, again, ROI, we've got to weigh out. And, do you want your own personal? Do you want it to be separate? Do you want to feel like, I'm pretty much a one-man agency. I have an intern and I contract out for some of the stuff I need done. But I still use we, when talking about Bullseye Creative Agency a lot, even though really it's me and I could say I, but trying to figure all that stuff out, it can be a dance.
Right. And so I forgot my question there, but I had a really good question that you were leading up to. So the one-man operation, I guess, is where I was going with that. This is where it was. It used to be, and I may answer the question in my question, but correct me if I'm wrong. It used to be that with the advent of the internet, and everyone wanted a short URL, really something quick and snappy, something that you can put in your logo, maybe 5 letters or less, 6 letters or less. I feel like the trend now is short doesn't matter, because you want SEO. You almost want to put the word real estate in there instead of making it short and doing RE or whatever, or plumbing in Atlanta or whatever it is, instead of plum ATL. Only so if people are Googling, plumber in Atlanta or whatever it is, it shows up. Is that my feeling? Is that accurate? Is that something that you advertise or clients in certain directions?
For you or for anybody else who is watching or listening, how often have you in the last 5 years even typed in a full URL to, on Google Chrome, your URL entry field is also a search tool. So you never ever finish out and type .com on the end of anything. Right. So everything's a search. So making sure that your website comes up in a search is 1,000 times better than an easy, memorable URL, in my personal opinion. I do have a lot of clients who are like, no, we got to get this short. And sometimes, you are typing in email addresses occasionally. And so, Alan at some long, name, or Justin at bullseyecreativeagency.com would have been much longer than bullseyeatl.com.
Right.
most people are hitting a URL code. They're clicking a link, right? I mean, if you're following us on social media and you're clicking through in the profile to find out more information or whatever, you're clicking a link. You're not typing in a URL.
Right.
And so it's not necessary. And then also, like, people are so hot on .com, which has for a long time, it's been the most memorable and it is the most popular. But there's a zillion endings these days, and I'm always trying to get my clients to go with .team or .agency, or there's all these cool endings now, and there's just no reason to not go with them, especially if it matches your name more clearly.
Right. Yeah. And .io is the new thing for NFTs and cryptocurrency, and it all shows up. Like, it doesn't need to be a .com anymore. And
not at all.
Yeah. Though I'll tell you this, I had a company, a sign install company. I've sold it now, but it was called Put Post In. Like, you put a post in the ground, and it was putpost.in. Which I might have gotten too creative, because then every email we sent got marked as spam coming from India.
Right. Yep.
It looked cool in the logo. I thought it was really creative. Putpost.in, putpost.in, but we had to revert to putpostin.com to get people to actually get our emails.
Yeah. So, but what you're talking about is a really interesting, like, there's so many times when if I'm part of that kind of ideation beginning process where we're naming, so much of it is searching URLs before, like, maybe you'll even settle on a name. You're like, this is it, we've got a name. And then you start searching URLs and you're like, nah, all the good ones are by. Let's go back to the drawing board. So yeah, searching URLs is a big part of the whole thing. And then even, like, I've gotten to a point where we've named it, we found a good URL, and then you go to incorporate, and then, like, you can really do business as, just like you say, like, you're not needing to put the LLC on your name, but so you can get a DBA to really name your company whatever you want to do business as. But even the incorporation process, then you'd be like, oh shoot, I'm gonna need to add a whole other word on here. I just really did that with a guy he was financial, and then we added financial solutions, which of course that changes the logo a lot when you have to add a whole word solutions in there, but we got it figured out.
Yeah. Well, Justin Schaeffer, what's sort of some parting advice for people who you may have that we didn't cover in this great show about branding and marketing and kind of growing your business from a design perspective?
Yeah. Oh yes, the curse of knowledge. It's something that Chip Heath and what's his name, Chip. Yeah, I guess they must be brothers, Chip and Dan Heath, in the book Made to Stick. I have a pile of branding books here that I refer to all the time. Their book's called Made to Stick. It was a bestseller. They talk about the curse of knowledge, and they end up talking about this psychological study that they did in California, where they asked people to listen to a song and then tap it out to another person. You're supposed to tap out the melody, right? And they would ask the people, what are the chances that this person who's listening to you is going to figure it out? And they would say 50-50. But the amount of people that figured the song out were like, 1%. I mean, it was like incredibly low.
Right.
But if you are hearing the melody of the song in your head while you tap it out to the other person, you're thinking, I think they got a pretty good chance of understanding this, right?
Right.
The curse of knowledge in owning a business is all about your business. What it's like to call you. You know what it's like to have a contract with you or receive your services. How happy your clients have been with your services. All about it. But the person approaching you knows nothing. They can't pick up the melody when you're tapping.
Right.
And so the curse of knowledge really messes with a lot of business owners, because you assume way too much about your potential client or customer. You need to crawl into their minds. You need to have people test your website. You need to have people, once people have contracted with you or your services or bought your product, you need to ask them what their experience was like. Was it clunky? Was it nice? How did you feel? You try to get this information back out, because you can never know. The curse of knowledge, you're cursed with it. It's too late. You already know everything about your business.
Right.
You need to find out what it's like to experience your business from scratch, so that you can adjust to try to, the reason to think about when you go to a website. You go to a website to try to understand something about the business before you reach out to them, because nobody likes reaching out cold these days anymore, because you can find out so much online before you reach out. So the experience on the website should really guide a person, assume they know nothing, inform and educate. So I think the curse of knowledge is such a important thing to to understand as a business owner, that you just don't take anything for granted while you're communicating.
Well, Stephanie Fuccio on YouTube says, great music analogy. It's so hard to describe things you know really well. In some ways that's how every time I've written a book, it's because someone's asked me the exact same 100 questions. Like, will you go with coffee? Will you have dinner with me or whatever? And it's always the same questions. And like, every time I'm shocked because I'm like, you don't know this about what real estate investing? You don't know that about finance? Like, no, they're starting from zero. And it actually helped me craft a book. Is just asking people what, listening to their questions, honestly.
Yeah. Yes.
And I love what you said is after they use their product, service, whatever you're offering, that sort of follow-up survey or phone call, what could have made it better? A lot of times it's like, well, if you would have just told me that this phone call was going to happen at this stage, right? Like they had no idea, or I had no idea I had to get this ready by this date. Like,
if you can communicate a process, like if you have a website where you're selling a service or a product, if you can tell somebody the process ahead of time, first you reach out, then we have an initial phone call, then I deliver your awesome service, then you're happy and just even like a few steps where people can know what it's going to be like. It's so comforting and it's really nice for them. While we were saying this, it reminded me of something else that's just gold for branding. Your reviews, the words people use to talk about you are the words you should use to market yourself. If you aren't using the words people are saying in your reviews about you to market to your next potential clients that are going to be just as happy as the people that gave you 5 stars, you're just missing out on free, brilliant marketing. The words they say there are so many times where like I've just gone into a person's reviews and been like, this is how we're writing the whole website. Like this is everything I need. The way they describe how happy they are with your services or how they felt. I felt nervous about blah, blah, blah. But then Alan made me feel better. And then everything worked out. I'm like, oh, so on the website, I'm going to say, do you feel nervous about blah, blah, blah? Alan's going to make you feel better, blah, blah, blah. And it's like exact words, and then I know I'm communicating to the next potential client that's going to be so happy.
I love that. And I think a lot of people don't know what their brand is. They don't know what their brand is, but you just told them how to answer it. Like what?
It's in your reviews. It's just sitting right there. They've already said, you could have a tagline just sitting in there. Some really great tagline, just sitting right in one of your reviews. You're like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to say about my business from now on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, if you guys wanted to do more branding, I highly recommend at Bullseye ATL, which is Justin Schaeffer, Bullseye creative principal over there. Thank you for all the work you've done for me, Justin.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, you've got a great following on Instagram and Facebook. You're also a great community builder. All the stuff that you're doing in and out of design, it's great to see you grow and thrive. Would love to have you back on the show.
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
All right, let's do it. And guys, reach out. He's great. He's open for business. Reach out to him. Get your branding done. Knock it out of the park from the start. And also, after you follow at Bullseye ATL online, follow at the House of AC. I need your testimonials. I need your reviews. I want to know what my brand is. I think I know what my brand is, but I'm fairly new. The House of AC is fairly new. So please leave your reviews online on the podcast, on my Facebook page, wherever you can, so that I can learn about my branding if I'm doing it right or not. So thank you for everything you've taught us today, Justin. And thanks for tuning in to House of AC. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Agent Upgrade Podcast. If you are an agent looking for a new mortgage lender, start with Jasmine at jasmineteam.com. If you want to learn about real estate investing and working with investors, check in with Alan at thehouseofac.com. See you next time on Agent Upgrade.